Hey guys, how you going? Today I just wanted to make a quick video on how to do some rust repairs on your 40 series Landcruiser front guards. I've rebuilt mine completely. They were so rusted out, they look like a block of Swiss cheese. They had holes all through them. They were almost unrepairable, but I just want to show you with a bit of time and a bit of patience you can actually do it. You can give it a go yourself. You don't need a fancy workshop. All I've got is a tiny little garage. You don't need all the tools. All you need is a good welder and a bit of patience, and you can do it. So I'll roll on those clips and enjoy. So this is the guards. They're rusted out, as you can see. Previous owner has just completely butchered them. Rust everywhere in them, underneath, and he just slapped fog over it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to fix them. It's easiest if you do it in squares. Doesn't matter if you cut a bit of good metal out, it's just so much easier to patch up. This corner bit here is going to be a bit harder, but the whole thing's pretty gone, so I'll give it a go. That square there, here. This top bit here, water pools on this side panel and just rusts out here. So the previous owners just put patches in, but I'm going to cut that out. I've marked the line so I know where that hole is, so after the repair I can re-drill the hole. Had to cut all this out, it's all rusty. So let's get stuck into it. So this section here is the first bit that I'm going to do. It's a pretty hard little bit to replace because of the curve on it. What I cut out was this bit here, so as you can see, completely rusted out. The previous owner just welded a plate of steel over the hole, didn't try cut it out, and it just kept rusting. So what I've done is I've cut out a little bit of steel here and I've just panel beaded it on this curved edge here. I've just got the rough shape. So now what I'll do is I'll keep fiddling around, cutting it down until it fits into this hole, and then I'll tack it in place. You've got to be patient with this. You don't want to go too hard and cut too much off, because the tiniest little bit you can overdo it and you're back at square one. So next I'm just going to panel bead it a bit more down. I've already got a pretty good curve in the section that I'm putting in, but just needs a little bit more. I just hold it here. I just tap it, go real slowly. So this is the bit that I got. I've cut it all out, I've fit it in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spot weld the corners just to get it in place and tack it in there. And you don't want to weld too fast too many times, because it will warp. This metal's only thin and the heat just pulls it in and the panels just warp so easily. So be careful, take it slow, and only do a couple welds at a time. So that's now tacked in place. I'm just going to sit that there and let it cool down, because if I kept welding now, that'll just warp the whole panel. I'm going to start on cutting out these next pieces, and I'll make them one at a time so I don't get carried away. So this is the bit that I just cut out, next bit that I'm going to do. What I do is I got my sheet still here, so I just mark out a rough square of the size of bit that I need. So you can see I've got some lines drawn here. I'll rule them across and cut it out. And then I'll start bending it, sort of match this one as much as I possibly can. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll take it over and I'll tack it in place. So I've worked this piece just with the hammer, as you saw. This is the bit that I cut out, so what I do is I just place it, sort of try to get the angle as similar as possible as you can. So that's pretty close there. Not too bad on that side. And then I can sort of put them on each other like that. They look pretty good. So I've got this next section cut out. It's clamped in place, ready to be tacked in. I've got a bit of overhang here, but I'll cut that back once I'm done. It's better to have too much than not enough. And once I tack this in, it should be good. So keep going, work our way down. This bit here will be pretty easy. It's just a square bit with no curves. These bottom bits here might be a bit harder, but we'll get there. So as you can see, I've drawn that line. I'm going to trim the excess on those and they should be leveled up. That bit there's factory, so that's the height of the guard. And I'll start coming down here. So I'm going to these spot welds here. I'm going to leave these and let them cool down. I'm not just going to keep welding, so you let them cool down in between the gaps, let that cool down in between those gaps, and just follow that process. Just make sure it's really cooled down before you do it, or else it'll shrink it together. They'll warp, up here will warp, and it'll just look worse than what it was. So this is the bit I just cut out. As you can see, the previous owner, this is the patchwork he did. So there's been two fixes done. There's this where they've just chucked a steel plate over the top and welded that in. And this section's actually tried to be spot welded in, but didn't quite work out as planned. So I've cut both of them out, and that's just an easy square bit to put straight back in. As you can see here, I've just done the front square bit. It's pretty leveled. I've just tacked it in. I'm not going to do any more welds than that for now. I'm going to let that cool down and then I'll come back and keep going. Done these two bits here. So then next I'll do this flat bit here. I wanted to get this bit in first before I went on to this bit instead of doing it all in one section, because it'd just be a bit too hard to get the curves and do it all in one. So do that bit and then I'll do that bit, and then I'll probably do this corner bit last. So it's coming up pretty good. We're getting through it. So next I'm going to replace this little square bit here. When the previous owner welded it in, he hasn't taken it slow, and you can see it's caused a massive divot here, which water has just pulled up and it's just rusted this out here. Part here. So what I've done is, because this hole here is a factory bolt hole for the side panel, I need to remember where that is. So I've drawn a line here, a line here, and when I cut that out and weld in the new section, I'll know exactly where that hole goes by going off these lines. So I can just re-rule the lines, drill the hole, and it'll be exactly where it was. So I'm going to get stuck into these bits now. This is also the other side that I've done, so the other side was just as bad. I had to do all these edges, the whole side on this one was gone, and this one actually turned out really well. So I've tacked that all in, and I'll keep welding that in. I had to do this whole bottom section, so that's come up really well actually. So once I weld all that and fill the gaps and grind them down, put some body filler over it, get it real level, and that's ready for primer again, high fill, and then almost ready for paint. The bottom section that I've put in, and back to this side. Alright, so new steel is in. Now I'm just going to weld it up a bit more. Going to go around, not fully, just in between each gap now so it doesn't get too hot. And then once I've done that, I'll let it cool again. I'll show you quickly what I've done so far. There's the lines there, so I know where to drill the hole. So this corner piece here, what I've done is I've decided I'm going to leave the bit that was already in there. I reckon I can panel beat this out and get it as smooth as possible. But what I've done was I've cut off all the old welds that the bloke did. When he welded it, he must have not had the settings right or a cheap welder. It spat everywhere and it was just a mess. So I grinded it all down, I made it real smooth. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to re-weld it up and reinforce it and make it strong again. It's pretty good actually. There's no rust in this part here, so it should be easily fixable. So this bit here I was going to try salvage and fix without having to replace it, but the more I tried to weld it, it was just about 1/10 of a mil thin. It was so thin that the second the welder touched it, it just blew out and just creating holes. So I've cut the section out and I'm going to put new steel in there. So I've cut the new section of steel out. I'm using 1.2 steel mil thickness. I just think it's the easiest. 1 is a bit too thin, I think. But 1.2 you can still bend and maneuver quite easily. It's a bit thicker, a bit stronger. So the section I've cut out, that's where it's going into. So I've got the little bend in it there. And now I'll just work it around and try to get that curve. You want to cut it a bit bigger so you can cut it down and fit it into place. So I've nearly done this guard. I've welded majority of it up. Just got a few more little bits and pieces to do. I'm switching between this one and the other one, so I'll show you what I've done on the other one. So all the new steel is in. Spot welding it up, so I just got a few more little gaps to finish off, let it cool down again, then I'll go again. That whole new side panel's in. If you grind too hard in the one spot, you will warp them again. So you can still sort of see some of the welds, so I'll just keep grinding them down and sand them down with a stripping disc. So I'm just sanding them back. I thought I'd have a quick break and just show you so far what I've done.